"You're just an unemployed gamer," my father said, laughing while my mother shook her head, a smirk tugging at her lips. They didn't realize the weight of those words. They weren't joking. They were dismissing my entire life, the countless hours I'd spent building something they refused to understand. I sat on my worn chair, controller in hand, headphones off, listening. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I just let them speak, their voices dripping with the certainty that I was wasting my potential. "You need a real job," Mom added. "Something respectable. Not this fantasy of yours." I looked at them calmly. "I'm working," I said, "just differently than you expect." Their laughter grew. "Working? Really? Sitting there all day playing games? That's your work." I stayed quiet. For years, they had mocked every choice I made. Every decision outside their understanding became a target, and yet I never gave up. I learned, practiced, built skills, and connected with people who saw value where they saw none. That night, I shut off my console, packed my laptop and notes, and stepped into a world they refused to recognize. A world where passion was currency and skill could be more valuable than any 9-to-5 paycheck. I walked out of the house with a quiet confidence. Mockery had been their weapon, but I was learning patience and persistence. One day, the tables would turn, and they would see the truth, not in words, but in results. I didn't know how long it would take, but I knew one thing: I wouldn't stop, and I wouldn't look back. The first few months after I left the house were the hardest. I had nothing but a small laptop, a worn-out desk, and a resolve that refused to let their words define me. While my parents laughed and mocked, calling me a gamer without prospects, I was quietly building a life they couldn't even imagine. I started streaming, not just casually, but strategically. I studied the market, learned content creation, and invested time in improving my skills, both in the games I played and in the way I communicated with my audience. My early streams had almost no viewers, the chat empty most of the time. But I didn't quit. I recorded tutorials, analyzed trends, and connected with small online communities who appreciated my dedication. Money was scarce at first. I survived on instant noodles and secondhand equipment, living in a tiny studio that barely fit my essentials. Every day, the weight of doubt and loneliness pressed against me, but every evening, I reminded myself why I started. I was proving something, not to them, but to myself, that passion, focus, and persistence could create value where skepticism only saw failure. 6 months in, things began to shift. Subscribers trickled in, then surged. My streams started attracting sponsorship offers, small at first, then bigger ones. I diversified, creating YouTube content, tutorials, and live events. Slowly, the brand I had built began to gain recognition. Friends I had met online became collaborators, and suddenly I was part of a network they could never have predicted. And yet, I stayed quiet about it. I didn't want their approval. I didn't want their ridicule turning into hollow praise. I wanted proof that results could speak louder than words, that respect could be earned without asking for it. Then came the day I first saw their text messages. My mother wrote, almost hesitantly, "We heard you're doing well." My father followed, "Is it true you're making money?" I didn't respond immediately. I waited, savoring the irony. For years, they had mocked me relentlessly, insisting that gaming was a waste of time. Now they were asking for details, almost pleading for information. I took a deep breath and replied, calmly but clearly, "Yes, I'm working just as I said I was. The difference is I built it myself." The silence that followed was delicious. Hours passed. Then came more messages, questions about earnings, sponsorships, even advice requests on what I was doing. My parents, the ones who once laughed at me, now wanted in. They wanted guidance, acknowledgement, a piece of the life they refused to support when it mattered most. But I didn't just answer casually. I made them see the journey, the sacrifices, the failures, the nights spent grinding alone while they mocked me. I sent screenshots, spreadsheets, and links. Every number, every subscriber milestone, every collaboration was a reminder. The unemployed gamer was now a self-made entrepreneur. And still, I didn't gloat. I let the evidence speak. I let the truth sink in slowly. By the end of the year, I had built a stable, profitable operation. My streams, content creation, and freelance work had given me financial independence. I moved into a larger apartment, invested in proper equipment, and even hired a small team to manage growing demand. Friends who once doubted my choices now asked me for advice. Sponsors treated me with respect. I was recognized in online communities, featured in blogs and articles, invited to panels and events. And all the while, the mocking voices of my parents echoed in my mind, not as pain, but as fuel. Every insult, every dismissal, every laugh that once stung had been transformed into determination. Their disbelief had become my motivation. Their mockery had given me clarity. One evening, I received a call from my mother. We want to talk. Can we come by? I paused. The same people who had mocked me, the people who had once laughed at my unrealistic dreams, were now approaching me with caution, almost reverence. I smiled, faintly, not with triumph, but with calm satisfaction. I didn't need to celebrate in front of them. I had already won. I had turned their doubt into my path, their mockery into my momentum. And when they arrived, they would see more than just a gamer. They would see someone who had built a life from nothing, someone who had transformed ridicule into respect, and someone who had learned that real success doesn't require approval. Because by the time they came begging, I had already claimed my victory quietly, confidently, and on my own terms. Months after I left, they showed up at my door. My parents, the ones who once mocked me, laughed at my dreams, called me just an unemployed gamer, stood awkwardly, unsure, as if entering a world they no longer recognized. "We heard about your work," Mom said, her voice soft, uncertain. Dad's jaw was tight, but his eyes betrayed the same mixture of pride and regret. "We were wrong," he admitted, finally. "I didn't shout. I didn't boast. I let them see the life I had built, the streams, the followers, the collaborations, the financial independence. Each achievement was a quiet testament. I had succeeded on my terms, without their approval, without their guidance, without their belief. They came asking for guidance, for advice, for acknowledgement of what I had built. I shared, I explained, but I never forgot the years of mockery. This was not revenge. This was dignity. That night, I understood something important. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving to yourself that your vision matters, that persistence, discipline, and self-belief can turn ridicule into triumph. When they left, I stood by the door, snow falling softly outside, and smiled. I hadn't just earned their respect. I had claimed my life. And that victory, built from my patience and determination, was mine forever.